We're here at the Smith Memorial Union with How's Your News director Arthur Bradford. Gave a presentation on the history of How's Your News and the latest documentary. And we're here with mainstream media reporter Chris Haynes, film critic, filmmaker, also food critic. He does a lot for mainstream media. And Chris, I know you've got some questions on the evening, so take it away.
Okay. I suppose we should start at the beginning. How did you get involved with Camp Jabberwocky, which was the genesis of the project? I assume.
Yeah, it was. I was a college student, and I was looking for a summer job, and I had no previous experience in the field, and a friend of mine said they needed counselors at Camp Jabberwocky, so I signed up, and it changed my life forever.
So, what's your process like, particularly in the editing process when you have hours and hours of footage? How do you get the shot?
Yeah, that's probably like the hardest part of filmmaking, is you guys probably know, is like dealing with all of that raw footage. I find that really, really, like, it's so daunting when so this last film that where we went to the political conventions, I think we had about 40 hours of footage, which isn't even that much for some documentaries, but watching all of that footage is just exhausting to me, and I hate watching the raw footage because there's so much, like, there's so many moments that I missed and I screwed something up, and so I try to just take it really slowly and watch about an hour or two a day, and try not to get too depressed about it. But then I make notes, and then and what I try to do is skip ahead to the good parts and make a little, like, sizzle reel ahead of time to kind of get myself excited. And if I'm working with an editor, that's the best, is if I have an editor who's working with me and can share the load. That's even better. But yeah, that's definitely the hardest part of making documentary film.
When you're in chaotic scenes, like in the heart of the convention, how do you make sure to get the shot you need right there in the moment?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I often miss the shot. What my favorite way to work is I have a cameraman that I work with. So his job is to focus only on camera, and then I have the second camera. I'm the B camera. He's the A camera. I'm the B camera. So I can concentrate on sort of directing a little bit, and I know that if I don't get the shot, that hopefully he does. But I also know that if I see something that I really want to get that shot of, I can shoot that. But I spend a lot of time trying to, if we're in a really chaotic situation, like on a red carpet or at the political conventions, I'm sort of trying to figure out how to position myself to sort of like intercept the target interviewee person, because a lot of our reporters are small in stature, and I'm a pretty tall guy, so I feel like I have to sort of guide that person over, and I can that's my job, is to guide them and sort of set up the scene and then try to get the shots.
What do you want to do next?
That's a good question. I love making documentary films, so I would love to shoot something here in Portland. I have done a couple music videos here, and I think I would love to actually do a narrative film, but I'm not sure that would be my next project, just because I've done so little of that. I think I have a documentary. I'm still shooting a feature-length documentary with Matt Stone and Trey Parker, the guys who made South Park, and they also made this musical called Book of Mormon. And so I want to finish that documentary, and then I'd like to make another documentary. I've been trying to get, I did one about the making of South Park, and I want to do one about the making of The Daily Show, but I don't know if they'll let me, so we'll see.
So I overheard you talking about fiction writing. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Mm-hmm. I started out kind of as a fiction writer. I went to graduate school to get my MFA in fiction, and I wrote a book of short stories, which I published about 10 years ago, which is sort of embarrassing because I never wrote any. Well, I kept writing, but I never published any more books. I published a children's book last year, and I still publish short stories, but I don't think I have the discipline to sit down and write a novel, which is what I thought I was going to do. But I started doing more filmmaking because you can't be. It was more conducive for my kind of lazy nature because, like, as you guys know, when you make a film, you have other people involved. So if you're feeling tired and like being lazy, then other people can kind of get you motivated. With writing, if you're tired and lazy, you just don't write. So it doesn't happen. That's why I think I've probably made more films than written books.
Do you think there's a documentary or a fiction piece in your current job as working with juvenile justice?
That's a really good question. I just recently started working with Multnomah County Juvenile Justice, and I don't, it would be really hard to shoot a documentary, although I think it would be fascinating if you could, because of the clearance issues, because all these are juveniles, and so like you can't take pictures in there or anything. Their privacy is really important. Their stories are amazing. Maybe someday I would write about it. I think that would be kind of cool. But I've only been working there for less than a year now, so I need to get more experienced in the world of juvenile justice. One thing, something I was always interested in was I spent all this time working at this summer camp for people with disabilities, and a friend of mine was working at a youth at risk program, and he brought some of the kids, these are juvenile offenders, over to the camp to visit the camp, and I was really fascinated by the effect that these kids of seeing, like, being in a community of people with disabilities had on these kids, because these kids all feel really sorry for themselves. They've had really tough lives, and they feel like all the breaks they got dealt the worst hand of cards in the deck. But I think when they see people with disabilities, they realize that there's people out there overcoming challenges, and that they maybe their lives are not as challenging as they might think, and it can be really inspiring for them, and it can be likewise inspiring for the people with disabilities. They have a lot to teach. That's what if that makes sense. I'd love to somehow explore that world. Is how could people with disabilities help youth at risk sort of become more self-reliant.
I have one question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, as the founder of mainstream media, sometimes I'll tell people that some of the funniest or most memorable moments of the organization happen off camera. So, what's one off-camera moment that you wish you could have put in one of your shows or in the documentary?
Gosh, that's a good question. It would, it would probably be. It would probably be at the Grammy Awards when we were on the red carpet at the Grammys. We just started our MTV series, and this was my first time directing a TV show for MTV, and one of our first things that we ever shot was we were on the red carpet at the Grammys, and I was so nervous that we were going to get kicked off of the red carpet because Bobby and Jeremy were fighting with each other, and they told us that we had to stay in these little boxes and not to go out on the carpet and everything. And so I was being the strict parent and being so strict about everything. But what I afterwards I realized like the best things were those like awkward moments when Bobby and Jared were fighting, and Bobby at one point he like ran after he saw the lead singer for the Black Eyed Peas, and he recognized him, and he sprinted down the red carpet to go like say hi to the guy and grab him, and my first thought was, oh no, we're going to get kicked out because he left the box and he was breaking the rules. And I wish that I had just let the chaos happen, because like what it could have been, like I wish I just, like, what if we had gotten kicked off the red carpet? Like that would have been kind of interesting. Or what would have happened? Like what if Bobby had tackled Justin Timberlake as he went by or something? Like that would have been like an amazing moment. But I was too busy like trying to make everyone behave, when actually I should have just let them act as they wanted to. So there's a lot of moments like that where I should have just let things play out, you know, funnier.
Let the workers' comp claim happen.
Yeah. It would. Yeah, they're just everyone's so strict, and they want everything to run so smoothly, but in these like red carpet and political conventions and everything. But always the most interesting things that happen are the stuff that's not scripted. So as a director, you have to like really be open to that happening and not panic when things start getting out of control. And I think too many times, especially with How's Your News, I just let things, especially with Ronnie, who's no longer with us, but he was like this big guy, and he would just, I mean, chaos would just ensue all the time. I should have just let it happen more. Would have been funny.
Any last questions, Chris?
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your South Park documentary?
Sure, yeah, I did it for Comedy Central, and it's on Netflix. You can see it's called 6 Days to Air, and it got nominated for an Emmy, which I was really proud of. And the way they make South Park is really interesting. They do South Park in 6 days, so it's like super one episode in 6 days, and they always pull an all-nighter on Tuesday night. So it's a really valuable documentary for people who want to make films to see. Yeah.
Well, thank you.